Hello, everybody. How are we doing today? So, this new way they do live is through some kind of hi, everybody. How are you today? I'm going to close my closet full of books. Be right back. Go ahead and come online. There, it distracts me. Today, we are talking about for sale by owners, also known as FSBOs. Before I became an agent, we sold a lot of our homes for sale by owner. What I didn't realize at the time is that what we sold them for, we could have gotten a lot more for. Unfortunately, we didn't know not know that at the time. We thought we were saving real estate commission prices, and in reality, yeah, we may have been saving that, but we ended up getting less for our home. Now, as a licensed real estate agent, I have done a little bit of homework and find out, okay, well, was it, obviously I want to be able to help people list and sell their homes, but is there really anything to for sale by owner? Do they really save any money? So as I started researching, granted this was years ago, I've been in the business now for 5 years, and have proven over and over that it is more cost effective and you do net more if you list your home with a real estate agent. Yeah, I know sometimes the commission numbers can scare people, and especially if you have an agent that is not able to negotiate their commission very low. Some of them you hear that 7% or 6%. Some people come in and say, oh, well, I'll do it for 1% or 3%. Well, in that aspect, you get what you pay for. Your 1% oftentimes don't provide you all of the benefits of hiring an agent that is going to be able to give you more um, for your money. So some of the things I wanted to go over are statistics. A lot of people love statistics. I'm not really a numbers girl, but since many other people are, I thought these were quite interesting. I got these statistics from the National Association of Realtors. They do these monthly and yearly, what's the word I'm looking for, like statistic documents all the time. So I took the most recent ones from today. Because we are in 2020, there's not really a lot of statistics to do right now, but I took what we had from 2019. So I'm going to start with this. 89% of buyers purchase their home through a licensed real estate agent. Also 89% of sellers are assisted by an agent. What that means is they hired a real estate agent to either assist them in selling it, to represent them, or they've paid another agent to bring them the buyer. So oftentimes, if you've tried to for sale by owner, you'll have a agent ask you, are you willing to pay a buyer's commission? And sometimes that can be 2%, sometimes it can be 3%, anywhere in between. Some of them will do it for a flat fee. Just know that when you are working with as a for sale by owner and you're working with an agent that represents the buyer, they work for the buyer. They don't work for you. So they only have the best interest of their buyer in mind when they're doing negotiations, when they're doing the contract, when they are doing any other part of the transaction process. If they pull up and you say you want this much and they say, well, this is how much my buyer wants to pay, you might actually, if you had representation for yourself, having a listing agent represent you, they would have known the market and they would know what you could actually get and what you couldn't. And that buyer's agent only wants the best and the cheapest bait they can get for their buyer. They don't care what you want. They don't represent you. They're not hired by you. So keep that in mind, that when you're paying another agent, you're paying them basically to do the paperwork. They're not they don't have your best interest in mind at all as a buyer's agent. Okay. Where buyers find their home. Often they're finding them on the internet. 52% of buyers find their home on the internet. That could be from their agent that sent them some emails and told them to look on their portal. You'll hear that from your agent. But 52% of people find them on the internet. 29% find them directly from their real estate agent. Finding a sign in the yard or an open house sign, only 6%. So if you're a for sale by owner and you just have a sign, only 6% of people are going to see that. A friend or a relative, that's another 6%. A home builder, or again, another agent, that's only 4%. Directly from the seller, only 3% of people find their homes directly from the seller. And then not many people do this anymore, but print newspaper ads, kind of, maybe you got a flyer in the mail, less than 1%. So if you're going to be a for sale by owner and you think you're going to send a bunch of letters and stuff out to your neighbors or maybe around, only 1% of people are actually going to see that and purchase their home from you based on that. Some more statistics. Okay, in 2019 from the National Association of Realtors, and you can go to their website, that's nar.com, and it's the profile of home buyers and sellers. It'll give you a lot more information, but I'm just going to give you a few things. It says for sale by owners accounted for 11% of the sales in 2018, but the typical for sale by owner home sold for only $200,000. When if they have an agent assisting them as a listing agent, compared to $280,000. Okay, guys, that's an $80,000 difference. You sell it by yourself, and maybe you have an agent that brings the buyer, but you're getting on average $80,000 less than if you would have hired a real estate agent and paid them their 4, 5, 6, 7%, which was what, maybe 10 grand on a $200,000 house? I don't know, do the math. I'm not going to calculate it right now, but you math geek people, calculate that. If you sold it for $280,000 and you paid an agent 5% or 6%, half of that is going to go to the buyer's agent anyway. So that 2.5% that you're for sale by owner giving them, they're going to get that anyway out of that 5 or 6%. So the amount of money that you had to pay an agent, you still come out netting a lot more than if you tried to do it by yourself. All right, so here's some methods, the common methods people use to market their home when they're for sale by owner. Some of them say none. They didn't really actively market it, 36%. How do you expect to sell your house if you're not going to market it? That's what us as real estate agents are trained to do. A yard sign, 31% of people use yard signs. And on my other statistics over here, I just showed you, only 6% of those actually end up purchasing a house because they found it from a sign. So clearly that isn't really a good form of marketing. Open houses, 24%. Well, that sign thing is another part. That's 6%. So they saw an open house sign or a yard sign. Only 6% of those 24% actually purchased the home because of that. Friends or relatives were at 21%. Again, 6% for a friend or relative of people who actually purchased their home from one of these statistics. The multiple listing service. So you can actually pay a pretty good chunk, a fee, to have your home listed on the MLS or the multiple listing service, which is what all of the real estate agents use to market your home. But you get a very limited version of that. You can put it on and agents will see it, but that's it. No buyers will see that unless their agent sends it to them. They don't have access to it. So you're going to pay a nice little fee. Sometimes it's a couple $1,000s. And you still don't get the marketing that if you had a real estate agent doing it for you. 20% of people that have for sale by owner market their home that way. Online classified advertisements, 13%. Social networking websites, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, 11%. For sale by owner websites, they're there, but only 5% use them. Direct mail, flyers, postcards, that kind of thing, 4%. A video, say they did a video on YouTube or on Facebook, only 1% of people actually use that. Print, newspaper, advertisements, less than 1%. Okay, so here's another most difficult tasks. When they surveyed for sale by owners, the most difficult tasks for sale by owner stated, it said, getting the right price. You know, it's one thing going and looking, oh, well, my neighbor sold their house for this much, and that neighbor sold for that much. And you try to take those numbers to figure out what you're going to list your house for. Unfortunately, that's not all you need in order to properly price your house. That's where the expertise of the real estate agent comes in. They will help you market and price your home properly based on the sales in the market. What you think your house is compared to may not be the same as what comparables really are. You know, we're trained to pull various different tools from the market in order to price your home properly. And appraisers have a very similar way of appraising your property that we have. They do a few other things, a few extra things. They have certain equations that they use to, you know, if you have a 3-car garage and this comp only had a 2-car garage, they have equations that can help to offset that number. But for the most part, our opinion as a real estate agent and an appraiser's opinion, as long as they're familiar with the market, those numbers should not be very far off. You as an individual may try to price it based on what you think things sold for, or maybe you pulled something off of Zillow or something along those lines and you thought, oh, well, look, that ranch down the house sold for this much. Well, my 2-story's got to be worth more, or my it doesn't work that way. So getting the price right, only 19% of people actually got their price right out of all of the for sale by owners. All right, preparing or fixing up your home for sale. Only 13% of people actually did that properly. St. Charles County does not require occupancy inspections. However, the majority of the rest of Missouri, St. Louis, Jefferson County, Washington, all of those places do. And if it doesn't pass occupancy, then you have to fix a bunch of things, and then they have to come back out again and re-inspect, and you have to keep doing it until you get it right. That's before the buyer comes in and does their own home inspection, which is a little bit different than occupancy inspection, but we can chat about that in another time. So, another difficult task for sale by owners sellers are selling within the planned length of time. Only 7% of people actually were able to sell it within the planned amount of time. On average, I think it said it was like, let's see, typical days on market for sale by owners are 3 weeks. Whereas in this market right now, when you have a real estate agent, if you're priced right, you're selling that house within 24 to 48 hours. Look it up. Ask any real estate agent you know. If it's priced properly, you're going to have a contract, and often multiple contracts, within 24 hours of listing your house using a real estate agent. Another difficult task, having enough time to devote to all aspects of this sale. I'm going to go over a little bit of that in a minute. We're going to talk about litigation checklists that I have for sale by owners. You know, are you putting yourself in a situation to get sued? There are certain things that you want to know, that you want to make sure that you're giving to the new buyer and disclosing to keep yourself out of trouble. And then understand and performing the paperwork. If you don't have another agent that is helping you, whether it be a transaction agent or a buyer's agent that is doing the paperwork, which again, if they're a buyer's agent, they represent the buyer, not you. So if you mess something up in the paperwork, they don't have to tell you. We're not legally bound to you. Our ethics is to that buyer. All right. So litigation checklist. Probably can't see it. It's probably going to be backwards. So I have a little, oh, I don't know, maybe. All right, I have a litigation checklist. So are you putting yourself in a situation to get sued? That's the thing. It's happened before. Have you properly disclosed all required features of the property? Like all of them that you know? I mean, I don't know, was there a leak in the basement 5 years ago and you had it fixed, but you forgot to write it on, you forgot to tell the buyer about it? They move in, a couple weeks later, it starts leaking again. You didn't disclose. Guess what? They can sue you because you forgot to write it down. Having a real estate agent on your side will make sure that you remember and think of all those things that you need in order to disclose, to keep you out of a courtroom. Another question: do you have the proper legal description of your property? Title company is going to need to know that. They need to make sure that they're titling the right property. Are you following the Federal Fair Housing Regulations, the RESPA Act? You can't discriminate. Age, gender, color. There's a lot of, you can go to federal housing regulations and it'll tell you. Culture, doesn't matter. You can't discriminate. Well, in your marketing or anything, you can put a post in For Sale by Owner or on Zillow or whatever about your house. And if you put anything in there that can possibly be discriminatory or taken as discriminatory, and in this culture right now, you guys, doesn't take much. But someone can sue you. Whether you meant it or not, whether it was in your intention or not, you can get sued. Make sure you have an agent that is helping you. They're the ones doing your marketing, so you don't have to worry about it. Do you have adequate liability insurance? Do you even have any liability insurance? What if someone does sue you? What if someone falls down on your property while they're looking at it? Are you covered? Have you prepared your home to avoid accidents? Do you have access to potential warranties that may help sell your home? Did you get a new roof a couple years ago? Do you still have that warranty? Is it transferable? Are you telling them it's transferable because you thought it was, and then they move in and they find out it wasn't? Lawsuit. Do you have a legal contract available should a qualified buyer want to purchase your home? What if they say they're qualified, but they're not, and you get to closing and they end up can't buying it because they never qualified for a loan? Did you even ask? Do you know the documents that you need to make sure that what they're saying is true? Or if they just provided you some kind of paper that they pulled offline, is it legit? How do you know? Your real estate agent knows that. Are you familiar with environmental disclosures? Do you live in an area that has mining rights? What about in an area that may have had some type of toxic issue in the ground that maybe has been remediated since, but did you disclose that? Or do you have the disclosures to prove that everything's okay? This is just a few things, guys, that you can be facing if you don't have someone familiar with the law. I mean, we're not lawyers by any means, but all of our paperwork, all of our contracts have been written by lawyers, so we know that when we're filling this stuff out, and then all the things that we have learned in our real estate school and in our continuing education classes have prepared us to be able to advise you and get you, keep you safe, for lack of it. So, anybody who has ever purchased a home or sold a home from with a real estate agent, you probably recognize this page. It's the Missouri Broker's Disclosure Form. It's 2 pages because it explains all the different agency options. I'm just going to read the first part of it to you. And then I'll briefly go over the different agency options. So it says this disclosure is to enable you, a prospective buyer, seller, tenant, or landlord of real estate, to make an informed choice before working with a real estate licensee. A real estate agent. Licensee is just a fancy word for agent. All right, Missouri law allows licensees to work for the interest of one or both of the parties to the transaction. The law also allows the licensee to work in a neutral position. We'll explain that a little bit more, but it's called a dual agency, where the licensee or the real estate agent, same thing, fancy word, represents both the buyer and the seller at the same time. And then the guidelines that we have to have in order to stay mutual. Literally, it's just a matter of presenting facts and facts only. There is no, well, what do you think of this? We can't. That's the only way you can keep it mutual. You can choose, however, to not allow a dual agency. Make sure you know this before you hire your real estate agent, that they're giving you this form and they're explaining what this means. How a licensee works depends on the type of brokerage service agreements involved. And we'll go over those agreement options in a minute. Since the sale or lease of real estate can involve several licensees, meaning more than one agent, it's important that you understand what options are available to you regarding representation and to understand the relationships among the parties to any transaction in which you are involved. Missouri law requires that if you want representation, you must enter into a written agreement. Same thing with a lawyer. They're going to ask you to enter into a written agreement that you're going to hire them if they're going to represent you in court. This is the same thing. If you want representation in your real estate transaction, you have to have a written agreement. This may or may not require you to pay a commission. For me, my buyers don't pay a commission. That just gets paid by the seller's agent, the sellers. Some people will. They might ask you for a small admin fee, $300, $1,000. I don't know. Every agency is different. Just interview a few of them. Find out who works best with you. You do not need to enter into an agreement with a transaction broker unless you intend to compensate them. So if you hire a real estate agent that is only going to be the transaction broker, meaning they're only going to be filling out paperwork, they cannot give you advice, they cannot help you negotiate. All they can do is provide the paperwork. And if you're not paying them a commission for that, or you're not paying them a fee for that, you do not have to enter into an agreement. If you do pay them anything, it must be in writing and it must be an agreement signed. If you choose not to be represented by an agent, the licensee working with you may be working for the other party to the transaction. That's what I was talking about a little bit earlier. If you're for sale by owner and an agent calls you and says, hey, I have a client that I think would really love to have your house. Can we come look at it? They look at it, you said, yes, they want it. They fill out the paperwork, contracts. You got all the documents you think you need. They represent the buyer. They don't represent you. So if you're not prepared and if you don't have the knowledge how to protect yourself, you may find yourself in a hairy situation. All right, choices available to you in Missouri. You have a seller's or landlord's limited agent. Their duty is to perform the terms of the written agreement made with the seller or the landlord, to exercise reasonable skill and care for the seller or the landlord, and to promote the interests of the seller or landlord with the utmost good faith, loyalty, and fidelity in the sale, lease, or management of the property. Then you've got your buyer's or tenant's limited agent. Their duty is to perform the terms of the written agreement made with the buyer or tenant, to exercise reasonable skill and care for the buyer or tenant, and to promote the interest of the buyer or tenant with the utmost good faith, loyalty, and fidelity in the purchase of the lease or property. A sub-agent, which is an agent of the agent, so maybe you have an agent that hired a different agent to do all the paperwork. They have the same obligations and responsibilities as the seller or landlord's limited agent or the buyer or tenant agent. So If they're a buyer, if the sub-agent is a buyer representing the buyer's agent, then their fiduciary agreement is to the buyer and vice versa. Disclose dual agent. You must disclose. The agent must disclose that they're a dual agent. So if someone lists your property and then they bring a buyer to the table and that buyer decides to go under contract for your property, that agent must disclose that they're going to be a dual agency. And you don't have to accept that if you don't want to. Oftentimes, like in my case, if that's something that the seller is not comfortable with, then what I do is I have someone within my office represent the buyer, and then I just have them pay me a referral fee. So out of the commission, so whatever commission amount you decided during the listing agreement part, a portion of that will go to the buyer's agent, and of that they will pay me a commission out of that for giving them the buyer, basically. So with the written consent of all parties represents both seller and buyer, or the landlord and the tenant. A disclosed dual agent may disclose any information to either party that the licensee gains that is material to the transaction. Only material to the transaction. It cannot be personal stuff. It cannot be, hey, I'm the listing agent. Hey, buyer, I know how little they'll take for this house. Or, hey, seller, I know how much the max amount that they'll pay for it. You can't do that. All you can do is give them the facts, the material information for the transaction. So further, to explain, a dual agent may not disclose information that is considered confidential, such as the buyer or tenant will pay more than the purchase price or lease rate, what I just said. Or the seller or landlord will accept less than the asking price or lease rate. I pretty much explained that a minute ago. Either party will agree to financing terms other than those offered. Can't disclose that in a dual agency. Motivating factors for any person buying, selling, or leasing the property. I may know, but I can't disclose to either party any of that information. What I talk about with my buyer, it ends right there. Whatever that door is, closed door. It ends there. Cannot disclose that or talk about any of that with the seller, and vice versa. Terms of any prior offers or counter offers made by any party. If me and my buyer and I have talked about how, what amounts that we're thinking about offering, I can't disclose that to the seller during a dual agency until I have it written down, and then that becomes material. That becomes fact. Then I can explain, I can share that with the seller. Then we have a designated agent. They act as your specific agent, whether you're a buyer or tenant, seller or landlord. When the broker makes this appointment, the other real estate licensees in the company do not represent you. So if I designate an agent, say I designate Rob Hussey for a specific transaction, maybe I'm going to be out of town, so only he can act on my behalf during the transaction. No other agents within my office can do so. There are two exceptions with both resulting in a dual agency. One, the agent representing you as a buyer or tenant is also the agent who listed the property you may want to buy or lease. Or two, the supervising broker of two designated agents becomes involved in the transaction. All right, then we have the transaction broker. This is what we talked about a little bit before. If you're not paying them a commission, you do not have to enter into a written agreement with them. But in this situation, the transaction broker does not represent either party. Therefore, they do not advocate in the interest of either party. It's simply filling out paperwork, kind of like an administrative assistant. Hey, or a transcriber. Hey, I need you to write this stuff down. That's all they can do. A transaction broker is responsible for performing the following: to protect the confidences of both parties, to exercise reasonable skill and care, to present all written offers in a timely manner, to keep the parties fully informed, account for all money and property received, talking about earnest money here, Assist the parties in complying with the terms and conditions of the contract. Disclose to each party of the transaction any adverse material facts known by the licensee. Suggest that the parties obtain expert advice. A transaction broker shall not disclose the buyer or tenant will pay more than the purchase or lease price. The seller or landlord will accept less than asking or lease price. Motivating factors of the parties, or the seller or buyer will accept financing terms other than those offered. A transaction broker has no duty to conduct an independent inspection of or discover any defects in the property for the benefit of either party, or conduct an independent investigation of the buyer's financial condition. That's all of it, a little more than a nutshell. If you guys have any questions on for sale by owner or agency agreements, or you want that litigation checklist, again, that's not a full checklist. It's just a few of the key things. Frequently asked questions, just to end this. I have not seen any questions come in through this video right now. However, frequently asked questions are, what is your commission rate? Commission rates are negotiable. At my brokerage, my broker doesn't determine what my commission is. I determine that. And I base that on the individual seller. I try to work with them as much as possible. Not going to be able to do it for free because there's a lot of work and time put into it. And because, it's my income, part of my income. But I will do my best, whether I have to do a flat rate or do a lower percentage, in order to help you get to what you need to get to at the end of the day. So if you need to net a certain amount and we can get you there without me doing it for free, I'll get you there. Another frequently asked question might be, do I have to use a real estate agent to buy a house, whether it be for sale by owner? No, but would you go to court without a lawyer? Probably want somebody to represent you, to explain the contract. Say the seller does have an agent and they're throwing all these papers. The contract itself is 9 pages long. Then you have additional documents and writers that they might hand you, and you have no idea what any of it is or says or any of it. So you want someone to represent you. And if you're working with an agent like myself that doesn't charge their buyers a fee, why not? You have nothing to lose. Can't really think of anything else that really is popping in my head of frequently asked questions. Those lately have been the most I've been asked. But if you have questions, as usual, please feel free to comment or to reach out to me and ask me the question, whether Messenger. You can do it on my business page if you're already subscribed, or you can schedule a free 30-minute consultation just for questions and answers, for buyer's consultation, seller consultation. And I guess that's all I got for you. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you next week. See you later.